Good evening, Victory Tribe. Welcome to Victory Now. A couple of weeks ago, we were having prophecies and stuff about Israel, so it kind of prompted my going about where I'm going today. So I wanted to kind of show about a protection for Israel. I wanted to start with Joseph and his dreams. He told his mom, in Genesis 37:6, he talks about, he told his mom and dad, the sheaves are going to bow before me, and his brothers hated him and made him mad. And so in this, God is showing Joseph that he's showing them the end product of where he's going to go, but he doesn't tell him any more information about it. So he tells his brothers get mad. His dad is really a proponent of Joseph, and he gives him the coat of many colors and all that kind of stuff. So he sends Joseph to check on his brothers, and they catch him. They throw him in the well. In Genesis 37:22, and Reuben said unto them, shed no blood, but cast him in this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand on him, that we might be rid of him, and by our hands to deliver him to his father again. And it came to pass, when Joseph was come to his brethren, that they stripped Joseph of his coat of many colors that was on him, and they took him and cast him into a pit. The pit was empty. There was no water in it. But then the Ishmaelites came along, and they decided, without telling his brother who was going to save him from the pit, that they were going to sell him. So this is point one, where God didn't show Joseph that he was going to be sold to enemy peoples. So then he goes and he works for Potiphar. Potiphar's wife has eyes for Joseph, and then she traps him. He runs away and she has his coat, and she says, he messed with me, and I want him put in prison. So Potiphar, after all this time that Potiphar left everything to Joseph, had to put him in prison because of what the wife said, because obviously the slave's not going to tell the truth, but his wife will. So this is the second place where God didn't tell Joseph that he was going to go to prison. So in prison, we see that God was with Joseph so much that even the prison warden put Joseph in control of everything. And then we have the dreams that the chief butler came down and told his dream to Joseph and said to him, in my dream, behold, a vine was before me. Okay, so he told him his dream. And then the chief baker came down and told Joseph his dream. But before this, Joseph said to these two guys, what's the matter? Why are you so cast down? You're in prison, yeah, but it's not, you're not dead and all that kind of stuff. So we see in Joseph a expectation that he has that God is going to be his protector, and that he just trusts God. He kind of like David in Psalm 103, I think it is. He says, why are you cast down, O my soul? So we see in Joseph that same thing that was in David, and his trust in God, knowing that God would protect him. Now, eventually, the baker and the butler is put back into place. The baker is executed, basically. So then Pharaoh has a dream. And he said to his servants in Genesis 41, can we find such a one as this, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said to Joseph, for as much as God has showed you his whole dream and what the whole thing meant, there is none so discreet and wise as you. You shall be over my house, and according to your word shall my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than you. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, see, I have set you over all the land. So here we saw earlier that Joseph was given a dream of the end result, but he wasn't told all the parts of that's going to lead to that. So we see that had Joseph been put in as the ruler of the nation when he got taken by the Ishmaelites, he would have had no background. There would have been nobody that knew who he was. But through these steps that God took Joseph through, he protected Israel and the nation of Israel and brought them into a land where there would be plenty of food because of the leadership of Joseph. So now we're going to go on to the angel of the Lord kills 185,000. Okay, one angel killed 185,000 men. That blows my mind most of the time. So in Kings 19:32, I think it's First Kings. Therefore, thus says the Lord concerning the king of Assyria, he shall not come into this city. Okay, so the Lord's telling the king of Israel, nor shoot an arrow there, nor come before it with shield, nor cast a bank against it. By the way that he came by the same way shall he return, and shall not come into this city, says the Lord. For I will defend this city to save it for my own sake. So God is saying that he's going to save Jerusalem for his own sake and for my servant David's sake. Okay, now we're looking back at David, who was a lover of God and a friend of God, and there's a heart after God. And it shall come to pass that night and it came to pass that night that the angel of the Lord went out and smote in the camp of the Assyrians 185,000 people. And when they rose early in the morning, behold, they were all dead corpses. Here we're seeing that Israel's king is being told, you don't have to fight this battle. Okay, and that's one of the things that we can depend on God. And there are times that we're going to have to fight a battle. But then there are times when God's going to say, you don't have to fight this battle. Send out the praisers first, and then I will take care of the battle. Kind of like in Jericho, when they marched around the city 7 times, and at the end of the 7th time, they shouted and the walls fell. Okay, they didn't have to shoot an arrow, didn't have to throw a stone, didn't have to draw a sword, didn't anything, but God took care of the city for them. There were battles that they were in, yes. And there were times when God sent them into battle to fight. But there are times when God's going to say, wait a minute, this battle's too much against you in favor, so let me take care of it. But most of these kings, when that happened, they consulted with the Lord first before they took their steps. Elisha tells the king about the enemy plans. In 2 Kings 6:8, then the king of Syria warred against Israel and took counsel with his servants, saying, in such and such a place shall be my camp. And the man of God sent to the king of Israel, saying, beware that you pass not such a place, for there the Syrians are come down. And the king of Israel sent to the place which the man of God told him, and warned him, and saved him there, not once, nor twice. Therefore the heart of the king of Syria was more troubled for this thing, and he called his servants and said, will you not tell me who is for the king of Israel? So the Assyrian king was thinking that one of his guys was betraying his plans to the king of Israel. And one of his servants said, none, my lord, O king, but Elisha, the prophet that is in Israel, tells the king of Israel the words that you speak in your bedchamber. So here we see that God is telling the enemy plans to the king of Israel through Elisha, who is obviously, he's a prophet, so he spends his time listening to God so that God can protect them from being slaughtered by a power that was bigger than them. And now for the rest of the story. Elisha protected by a host of angels. So here we see when Elisha's servant wakes up, he goes out the tent, looks around, and sees the whole place surrounded with enemy. And he goes back into Elisha, goes, man, what are we going to do? And Elisha goes, don't worry about it. There's more with us than there are with them. And I'm sure his servant's going, wait a minute, let's see, there's 1 you, there's 2 me, and there's nobody else here. But Elisha was seeing into the spirit realm and calling into the spirit realm for angelic support. So then he says, Lord, open his eyes. Okay, this is in 2 Kings 6 also. So he said, open his eyes and let him see. And when the Lord opened his servant's eyes, he saw the hills surrounded with angels. So God was supplying angels to defend 2 people and the city, obviously. But the resources of heaven are so much greater than what we can even realize. I mean, 1 angel killed 185,000. So how many would a host of angels kill? Millions, if they had to. But to make it even worse for the enemy, Elisha said, Lord, just blind these guys so they can't see. So the Lord blinded them, and Elisha just led them back to the Israelites' camp and said, here's your guys, do with them what you got to do. So there were 2 weapons there that God used for the Israelites that you would never think, well, if the enemy comes to get me, I know Leave it to God. Don't try and take it into your own hands. Abraham found that out when he and Sarah had a child other than Isaac. 4 lepers find the enemy camp empty. Now we're in 2 Kings 7. And these lepers were in a city that was besieged by the Assyrians. So the people inside were dying from hunger because they couldn't get out to get food or water. Their water was blocked up too. So they weren't allowed to be around everybody else because they were lepers. So they said, look, let's talk about this. If we stay in the city, we're going to die. If we go to the enemy, we may die, we may live. So there was a better chance, it was a 50-50 chance rather than a 100% chance of dying. So they said, well, let's go together and go down to the camp and just see if they'll spare us. They rose and fled in the twilight. Okay, we'll go back up. For the Lord had made the host of the Syrians to hear a noise of chariots and a noise of horses, even the noise of a great host. This is 2 Kings 7. And they said one to another, lo, the king of Israel has hired against us the kings of the Hittites and the kings of the Egyptians to come upon us. Wherefore they rose and fled in the twilight, left their tents, their horses, their donkeys, even the camp as it was, and fled for their life. And when the lepers came to the uttermost parts of the camp, they went into one tent, ate and drank, carried away silver, gold, raiment, everything, and entered into another tent and carried it away too. So these guys, as they're walking down to the camp, the enemy hears sounds that were not there, okay? But the Lord made them hear those things and scared them away. 4 guys scared away a whole camp of people. So never limit what you expect God can do for you. Now we've got the Passover, where you had Moses and Aaron and coming in against the Egyptian and doing all the plagues and stuff like that. And then the final straw was that they had the Passover, had to be ready to go immediately. They killed the lamb, put the blood on the doorposts. And in the nighttime, the angel of death went through and killed the firstborn of all of Egypt, cattle and people. But the Israelites were spared because of that blood covenant that they had on their doors. So we're seeing here that just God does so many amazing different things in different ways than we would ever expect. Then we've got Gideon in Judges 6:8, who is out on the threshing floor doing his work, and the angel of the Lord came to him and said, "Oh, mighty man of valor." And he's going, "Me? My family's one of the smallest and the poorest in the nation." He goes, "No, you don't see who I see in the spirit realm." So then he took as many people as he could get together and cut them down by saying, okay, if you don't want to be here and you want to go home, go home. Okay, we're going to travel around a little bit and then we're going to see how you drink. And if you drink water the correct way, we'll let you go to battle. Well, when he was done, he only had 300 guys against a host of army. Most of the time, if you're going 1 against 10 people, you're going to go, ah! So he was going 300 men against thousands of people. So the odds are definitely against Gideon, but with God, all things are possible. So when they broke their lamps and the lights shined out and it scared the living daylights out of these other guys, then they routed the enemy. So there was one of the guys that I worked with was a staunch Catholic, and he told me, he says, "Have you ever read any of the apocryphal books?" And I went, "Well, pieces of maybe." He said, "Well, you've not read the whole Bible." I'm going, okay. So just because of that, I went ahead and read through all the apocryphal books. And I can see where some of them would have been kept out, because of some of the stuff they said. But the history in the Maccabees, there's 1, 2, 3, and 4 Maccabees. And in one of them, the Lord protects his temple in 2 Maccabees 3. And it says that the enemy army was coming in and taking possession of the place. But when Herodias had arrived at the treasury with his bodyguard, then and there the sovereign of spirits and of all authority caused so great a manifestation that all who had been bold as to accompany him were astounded by the power of God and became faint with terror. For there appeared to them a magnificently dressed horse with a rider, frightened looking and rushing furiously at his feet and struck him with his front hooves. The rider was seen to have armor and weapons of gold. 2 young men also appeared to him, remarkably strong, gloriously beautiful, and splendidly dressed, who stood on each side of him and scourged him continually, inflicting many blows on him. So even in these, there are many other opportunities in the Maccabees of how God protected his people. And it also shows a lot of places where people died because of their faith and their belief in God. So, in conclusion, what we want to say is that no matter the circumstances, God's got your back. Trust him, go to him to find out how he wants you to handle the problem that you're in. Don't just try to do it on your own, because you have no idea how many different ways God has that he can work you out of that problem or support you in the middle of that problem until there is a way out. So trust God, believe God, work with God, and let him work in and for and through you.